for the introduction. Now, I know you guys are hungry and tired, probably sleepy from last night. So let's just have fun while we're talking about the environment. So, I'm expected to be speaking about the environment, so I thought it would be appropriate to start with a theory. Now, this theory is not, the theory of evolution or relativity. I think it's more important than that. And it's called the theory of love. Now, this theory is very simple. Postulate 1 says that when you love what you do, you become very good at it. And number 2, when you love something or someone, you are inspired to protect it, or him or her. So, for example, you're a mom. Of course, you don't want anything bad to happen to your children, right? Or, let's say something more simple. You have a camera, you don't want to drop it. It's like that. Now, I grew up with 2 things that I loved a lot, and the first was art. So for about 10 years, I was doing a lot of theater. I was taking voice lessons, dance, theater. I performed with repertory, with trumpet. And then I started teaching kids when I was 15 years old. And then at 16, I took creative writing in New York, which led me to major in English studies at the University of the Philippines in Diliman. And that was me right before I submitted my thesis, which was a linguistic analysis of tourism materials. And I always thought I would be in Diliman University for the National Writers Workshop, but that didn't turn out the way I intended, and I'm here speaking to 200 youth leaders all over the country, and I think that's a better opportunity. Okay. The second love is the environment, and I say that with a question mark because I didn't really start getting into environmental work until college, until late college. But maybe my 2 interests go together because they say the earth spelled without art is just air. Now, my dad is an environmental lawyer, so I grew up, pretty much exposed to nature. And when I showed this photo to my friend, that's me planting trees when I was about 4 or 5. I showed it to my best friend and he said, "Wow, your brother is so cute." Sabi ko, "Gago ako yan." Babae yan. I am a girl. Anyway, and then, so when I got older, my dad and I, we were always like, we were in the Visayan Seas, we were like rescuing sea turtles and swimming with small sharks. And at 15 years old, I became a scuba diver. And you know what they say, basta diver, sweet lover. And so, I learned to love the environment, and I learned to love the sea in particular. There was an article that came out last year declaring the Philippines as the place where the action is. And it's not, Filipino scientists just saying it. This was done by international scientists. And they said that the Philippines is where the action is. Our country has more diversity on land and water than any other place in the world. Now, this was published in different publications, and you'll see it later. Mount Makiling, this mountain in Luzon, has more species of plants than the entire America. Okay, we have 5 out of the 7 species of marine turtles. We have more corals than the Caribbean Sea and the US Sea and the Great Barrier Reef. And still everyone wants to go out, right? There are studies that declare that we have the highest rate of discovery when it comes to species. At ang taas ng endemicity ng Pilipinas, meaning we have so many species that can only be found in the country. And by the way, a quick grammar lesson, the singular of species is not species, okay? Let's get that straight. So the study about the Philippines getting a lot of biodiversity, has a lot of high biodiversity, was published in the National Geographic also, and BBC and Fox and all of these international media outlets. And so if Ninoy Aquino said that the Philippines is worth dying for, I say it's worth diving for. Now, a few months later, National Geographic featured the Philippines again. Homepage na naman tayo. And now, the headline was the best shots of imperiled sea life named. And this is in Anilao, where I dive often. And as you can see, if you save the picture, the file name is trash. Okay? And it's very clear how there's so many pieces of plastic in the water. Now, I think that if we are the center of biodiversity, we also happen to be the center of adversity. And if the Earth could say something to human beings like you and me, that's what it would say. We have evolved into the only species that makes waste nature can't digest. If you look at this picture of a turtle, who watched Finding Nemo? Oh, I see a number of hands. And you know that turtles can live to 100 years old, right? And look at how young this turtle is. And you know why it died when they did an autopsy? This is what was found in its stomach. They found pieces of plastic inside the stomach and it wasn't able to digest it, so it died. But this isn't just about turtles and, cute animals like dolphins. This is also about human beings, because whatever goes into the ocean goes back to us. And in the recent storm that hit Manila, this is what happened in Araneta Avenue, and this is Manila Bay. You can see how dirty, parang sinuka nung Manila Bay yung lahat ng basura na tinapon natin doon. Most of the illegal and destructive fishing methods that we see, like dynamite fishing, uroami, paaling, all of that started in the Philippines. And what makes it worse is that it started in Visayas, which is supposed to be the center of marine biodiversity in the world. And I dive pretty often, and I hear dynamite fishing going on underwater, and it is one of the scariest things you could experience. It's like all of the cavities in your body, parang boom, boom, ganun, and you're like, am I still alive? That's always my reaction when I'm underwater. And then there's a lot of poaching going on. The Philippines is the source of illegal wildlife trade. So about last year in May, this hit the news. 161 hawksbill turtles, which are endangered, were poached off Sulu, and black corals, which grow 1 millimeter a year. Okay, and they're deep sea and they only grow in pristine conditions. The headline then was coral reefs twice size of Manila destroyed. Now I heard about this over Twitter, and sometimes I think the greatest wonder of the sea is that it's still alive. And when I was, doing work for this issue, I had just graduated college. In fact, I think it was a few days before my graduation. And I was crying, and I couldn't eat, and I couldn't sleep, and I thought, shit, this is like a breakup. But worse, because boys are replaceable, marine resources are not. Okay? Girls, make sure you know that, huh? So anyway, I was writing a lot. I was, because at that time, I had nothing. I had no organization. All I had was a degree in English, so I knew how to write. And that was the only skill that I had. I'm not a scientist, who will believe me, diba? So I started writing different government officials. So I wrote BFAR, I wrote the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, the Protected Areas and Wildlife Bureau, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. And I just read up on environmental laws and said, I think this company is violating this and this and this. And one by one, I put it online so that everyone could see. Wala man lang letterhead, walang anything. It was 5 days before my graduation. And then one by one, they sent me rejection letters. So the ENR said, Ms. Oposa, that's not our responsibility. You go to PAUB. And then PAUB said, oh, that's not our responsibility. You go to BFAR. And BFAR said, oh, let me look into this, thanks. And then a few weeks later, they said, let me check it out. So in other words, they just played basketball, diba? They were just blinking each other. But they say that sometimes the only mode of transportation available is a leap of faith. So I took that. And at that time, I think I was more mental than enviro in the word environmental. And I was thinking how failure is an option. I mean, I don't know what will become of the efforts that I do. But as James Cameron said, fear is not. Failure is an option, but fear is not. And I don't know why, but parang napossess ako, and I went to the Senate. I waited outside Senator Zubiri's office, who was then the chair of the Environment and Natural Resources Committee, and I was there and I said, sir, I really need to talk to you, this issue, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, well, I have a meeting, but if you can wait, then you just wait outside my office. And so I did. I stayed there for 2 or 3 hours, and then just sitting outside waiting. And you know what, after his meeting, he said, okay, come in, let's talk. And then I told him about it, and I showed him all the letters that I had received. And he said, there's a Senate hearing tomorrow. I think you should testify. And then I said, oh my God, you're serious? And he was like, yeah, you have something to say. And I the country should hear it. So I was like, oh my god, I have 12 hours to write my speech. And then the next day, I went to the Senate and I testified, and this was aired on national television, and it was on the front page of the Inquirer the next day. And I remember when that happened, I was so nervous, I was so emotional. The video was online, and if you see it, you can hear me at the end almost crying. And so after that, I got my phone. I got a text from my friend all the way in Cotabato. Sabi niya, girl, ang ganda ng hair mo. Second text, hindi ko walang pinansin yung content ng speech ko. But anyway, so at that time, it was, the environment was facing a big crisis. And in Chinese, if you know the word for crisis, it's made of two characters, danger and opportunity. And that time, our environment was facing a lot of crisis. We were in crisis and we were in a lot of danger, but it was also an opportunity. And people who were more active about the issue online, there were a number of us who were very active on Twitter and on Facebook. We got together one evening on Skype, and we're not even friends. We all just met on Twitter. And we said, so what are we going to do about it? And that's how Save Philippine Seas was born. And right now, they call me the co-founder and chief mermaid of Save Philippine Seas. Now let me tell you this whole chief mermaid issue. I invented that title because I wanted marine protection to be something cool and fun and relatable. Kasi when you think Philippine Seas, parang wow, so deep, ganyan. But when you say mermaid, it's like, look at this stuff, o diba? So parang masaya. And then, so in my business card, in my SPS card, I put co-founder and chief mermaid. I gave a talk in the Marine Science Institute, and one of the people from the Protected Areas and Wildlife Bureau approached me and said, can we invite you to give a talk somewhere? And I said, yeah, sure, so I gave my card. A few days later, I got an invitation declaring me as the co-founder and chief mermaid, declared by DENR. So I was like, wow, I am the legit mermaid of Save Philippine Seas. So yeah, yun na, nag-stick na siya. But maybe there's some truth into this whole mermaid metaphor, because there's a quote that goes, I must be a mermaid. I have no fear of depths and great fear of shallow living. So what are some of the things that SPS is busy with? Well, one is we're launching a program next year, early next year, called Weekend Watchers, where we want to monitor nesting sites all around the Philippines. So if you live near one, if you're from La Union or Davao or Palawan, do contact us so we can work together. And we're having a photo exhibit by Artists for Nature called End Danger to raise funds for that. Right now, my project is in Malapascua. I'm based in Cebu for the shark shelter, which is about protection of the thresher sharks there. And then we have a Blue Tourism infographic series. In SPS, we're all writers, designers, ganyan. We're all communicators. So we really believe in getting the word out there about issues and about ways that we can help as people, as Filipinos. And then we have the Marine Biodiversity Mural, which is in Quezon Ave. And this is our project with the MMDA. And in SPS, we love working with other orgs, other government agencies. And as you can see, yung isang MMDA officer, pinapaint namin siya ng wall. Kasi we really believe in collaboration and being inclusive. Hindi kami yung type na parang lahat na lang ng government officials inaaway namin. It's not like that. It's more of like, this is what we're doing, this is what you're doing, let's work together. The more people you involve, the more you can do. This is what it looks like, one side of it. And we made sure to put Philippine species, like, no penguins or polar bears there. But there's the Irrawaddy dolphin, there's the rays and whale shark and hammerheads. And then we have art contests for kids about the sea called Imagine Ocean. Now, what are the challenges? You might be thinking, she's so young, whatever. Okay, so one challenge that I always face is the lack of authority. I took up English studies, so I can tell you more about Nick Joaquin and Shakespeare than the anatomy of a whale shark. But then I always tell people, but we need more communicators in the environmental movement. We can't all be scientists, right? So whatever the scientists research, we turn into campaigns. We turn into information and education activities that people like you and me can understand. Another thing is that I'm female. And whenever I go to, a meeting in Malacanang or whatever, all these guys, one time I left my license at the gate of the Malacanang, and I came back with a number of a guy telling me, "You text me, huh?" And I was like, nakaka-insulto ka. But that's one of the challenges that I face as a young girl who meets with all these old men. And then one time I presented to the local government about my project, and then, I was so nervous, I was so passionate. And after an hour of speaking, I said, "Are there any questions?" And then one counselor said, "Are you single?" I was like, well, how is that even relevant to the work that I'm doing? Another thing is age. I'm 24, right? So a lot of people kind of tell me, "What do you know?" And I always tell them, "Well, sir, I'm not saying that I'm an expert. And in fact, I hope I never become an expert. I hope I'm always a student of the environment and a student of this country." When I walk into meetings, they always say, "I didn't know I would be meeting with someone so young." And then I say, "And beautiful." Para lang matawa sila at And another thing is threats. When I started becoming more public about illegal wildlife trade, I got a lot of threats for libel and whatever, security issues, and I couldn't even go back to Cebu for a few months. A year after, one of the companies that we targeted and exposed in the Senate hearing actually came out on Miami Times and talked about me and said, parang, "Ana boss is this, that went into the Philippines, blah, blah, blah." And then sabi niya, "For environmentalists, it's broccoli or nothing. Environmentalists are concerned about everything. They're weirder than Michael Jackson." Well, thanks. I love Michael Jackson. And the thing is, guess what? I'm just beginning. So I'm just going to give them more reason to hate. Because it means, maybe, when you have haters, it means you're doing something worth pursuing, right? And one thing that I've learned is that if you want to be a change maker, you also have to be a troublemaker. So remember that. But I'm not saying, set something on fire. Set your soul on fire. But, put them in the trouble that you're making in context. When people ask me, what is the biggest challenge for you? And who here watched the Lorax? Okay, so there's the biggest line there is, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. And for me, the greatest most alarming environmental issue is apathy. I think that when you don't care about the things that are around you, nothing's gonna happen. And that's when all of the problems start. And whenever I give this talk, there's always someone in the audience who said, "Ma'am, I think it's poverty. Because when you're poor, you can't care about the environment." And I said, well, on the one hand, I get what you're trying to say. Sabi nila, but for you to be able to care about the things that are around you, you have to be fed, you have to drink water, you hire, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, ganyan. And I say, okay, yes, I understand, but where does our food come from? Where does our water come from? Where does our air? That's all in the environment. We have to do all of those things at the same time. And well, we might be waiting for the world to end on a Friday, but I must say we have not found a planet B, right? We're all still going to be on this earth. We haven't found an option to move. So how's that now? Parang maybe my talk is too depressing and it's like, shit, now what am I going to do, right? But I'm not here to depress you and make you want the world to end. I'm here to also give you options and alternatives that we can do as young people. One thing that I am very passionate about is Human Nature, the product. You may have heard of it. It's a personal care product line made by Filipinos for Filipinos, and it's organic, it's completely biodegradable, and it was co-founded by the children of Tito Tony Meloto, who you heard yesterday. And I started using these products way before I became an ambassador for the product because I really believe in it. And Dylan Wilk, who's the husband of Anna, the son-in-law of Tito Tony that he was talking about yesterday, he said, being Filipino should not just be in your hearts and minds. It should also be in your pockets. Meaning, the choices that you make when you buy products that affect your life, or your personal care products, your medicine, ganyan, has to also support the Filipino people and the Filipino economy. And that's why I particularly support Human Nature products. Paper or plastic? There's this big issue. There are so many cities banning plastic, and then people are saying, but they're using paper bags, and that's a really good point because where do paper bags come from? Trees, right? And it's heavier, so you consume more energy to transport it. So the answer is you bring an eco bag. And Human Nature and SPS put together this eco bag which has Philippine species on it, and it's really big. As you can see, that's me. So it's really big. It's more for groceries, and you can give it to your mom. And what I carry in my bag is this one. Looks like a fish, given to me by a fellow SPS friend. And it opens up into a bag. So it's just for simple things, and I carry this in my bag every day so that I don't use plastic when I go shopping. And that's one way that we can all do something. When you buy ice cream, it's better to use cones than cups because cups you throw away, cones you just eat. When you reload, it's better to do e-load or auto-load because that way you don't buy plastics wrapped in plastic. Bring your own water bottle, you save money, and then you don't add to the landfill, diba? Another thing is sachets. I understand on the one hand, it's economy. Not everyone can buy big bottles of shampoo and whatever. But if you can't afford to buy the bigger bottle instead of buying the sachet, you save more in the long run, and you don't contribute to the wastes in the canals and the landfills. And to show you what it's like, my friend from SPS, she took fine arts, and for her thesis, she created a wave made of sachets. And I asked her, bakit wave? Is it because you're a surfer? Tapos sabi niya, well, a wave is both destructive and beautiful. As a surfer, it's beautiful because you get to ride on it, but think about a tsunami and how it can destroy communities. And that's what she used, and this is what it looks like in the side. And this is completely made of sachets that she collected from her friends and family in 2 or 3 months. So can you imagine, yan lang, 2 or 3 months, tapos from people that she knew? What more? How much all of us consume? And to give you a scale, that's me, I'm 5'2", so it's about twice my height. Straws. Joshua and I, he's one of the he's one of the organizers. We were talking about it in the car, and he was saying how I'm also an environmentalist. I don't get straws when I order in Jollibee, and I said, you know what? That's a big help because it's one of the top pollutants in marine environments. I think sometimes we forget that we can drink without straws. Everything has to have a straw. Even water, really? Why? Diba? Kung shake, okay pa eh. Kasi medyo mahirap nga naman. But I mean, simple things. Why do you need straws? And if you don't believe me, I took these pictures in Puerto Galera, and that's all straws in here, sachets, and then a slipper. And it's so funny because a few steps later, nakita ko yung kabilang slipper. So naglakad na lang siyang kaba. Anyway, and then lighter, comb, all these things you find in the coast, in the sea. One of the things that got me into environment was I did a cleanup dive in Anilao at 60 feet, 80 feet. You see diapers, you see sanitary napkins. I mean, does the sea look like a trash can? I don't think so. And one other thing that we can do is to learn how to swim. It amazes me that 80 to 90% of Filipinos don't know how to swim. And we are an archipelago. I don't get it. 6,000 Filipino children die every year from drowning. And that doesn't even count those who are part of calamities and storms. And I think that in the Philippines, we should be born looking like this. We should have fins. And then one other thing, of course, is the food choices that you make. One of my advocacies, my greatest advocacy right now is shark conservation. Which is why I have the project in Cebu. I think that sharks are one of the most fascinating creatures. And guess how many shark attacks there are in a year na fatal? Any numbers? Guess? 5, 4, yeah, there are about 5 to 10 fatal shark attacks a year. Guess how many sharks we kill? 1,000. Any other guesses? 100 million. Human beings kill 70 to 100 million sharks every year. And that goes on in the Philippines. This was taken in Mindanao. This was taken in northern Philippines. And it's just, families slaughtering sharks together. And why are sharks important? Because they're the top predators of the marine ecosystem. So essentially, they keep the entire ocean in balance. And if you take out the sharks, the population of the other species will increase and wala nang balance, diba? This is heavily publicized in Cebu and in Market. I took this picture outside Market because Filipinos think that shark liver oil makes us whiter. Why? There is no scientific explanation for that. So, imagine my surprise when I walk into Manila Ocean Park. I had to go there for an event. And I saw this ad for a shark attack. So I was like, okay, this is so off. So I looked for the email addresses of the top management of Manila Ocean Park. Hobby ko kasi magsulat ng letter eh. So that's what I do during my free time. Write letters to leaders. So I wrote them a letter. And I said, you know what, for an institution that supposedly educates children about marine conservation, you're not doing a very good job. I think you should call it Shark Encounter because that's what it is. You're asking people to dive with sharks so that they know that it's not dangerous. Diba? Well, anyway, they didn't reply. So I was like, okay, but at least I tried, right? And then a few weeks later, this was the old ad, and this is the new ad. I just saw it on their website. And then, in my letter I wrote in my letter, why does your shark have so much teeth na parang it's gonna eat somebody? Why don't you put a smiling shark? Oh, diba? So sabi ko, and the one in between the words, it looks so angry. Why don't you put a nicer looking shark? Oh, diba? I mean, sometimes you just don't know. And then a few months later, they came out with an ad that says, dive up close and personal, and then say no to shark's fin soup because blah, blah, blah. Help us in protecting sharks. And I was like, we're all student leaders. You guys are all student leaders. And I'm sure you guys have all of these, I want to get into this school, I want to graduate, whatever, cum laude and whatever, and it's all going to be nice on your resume. But one thing that I've learned is that the best and the greatest achievements you have are the ones that don't end up in your resume. Because that shark attack letter, that's never going to end up in my resume. I don't like accomplishments. Was able to convince Manila Ocean, that's not going to happen. But for me, that's better than going to the World Economic Forum in Switzerland. That's better than winning any award. Because I was able to influence this great institution, this big, not great, they're not great, this big institution, to change the way we see the animal and the way we see the sea also. So one thing that's very important for student leaders, for influential people like you guys, is to spread the word. Sabi nila, practice what you preach. Yes, yeah, okay. But we also have to preach what we practice. And I think that one of the first things to do to be able to curb apathy is education. The more you know, the more you're empowered to do something. And there are so many ways now. You can write, you can make videos, there's social media, which is for free. Blogging, inventions, use art, puppets, and social entrepreneurship, which previous speakers already spoke a lot about. I love working with kids. I teach kids a lot, and one of my students, she's 6 years old, and her name's Ariel, like the Little Mermaid, and she wrote me this, she made this for me, and she said, it's her and me diving together, and these are the sharks that are protecting us. And then she wrote me a letter, and she said, what do you learn about sharks? I think sharks are scary because they're trying to protect their home. And then there's a little fish that says, help. Now, the girl who did this, she's actually the granddaughter of Tito Tony. So greatness runs in their genes, what they eat or how they're brought up, but they're just amazing human beings. And I think that when you start with young people, then it works, When you influence, you have cousins or younger siblings or nieces or nephews, We try to talk to them, and trust me, I always say that I think I learn from them more than they learn from me. When I was teaching in Mano Amiga, this public school in Taguig, I asked them, what do you think corals are for? And then they said, teacher, yung binabato nyo pag may kalaban kayo. Bakit ganun? And then I said, okay, so I was teaching them about poaching, like, kinukuha yung mga corals. Eh, diba, ang corals, bahay ng isda. Sabi ng student, teacher, kung mawala yung bahay nila, edi lumipat na lang sila sa ibang bahay. Oo nga naman. So I've been speaking here for I don't know how many minutes, and you might be wondering, why is it so important to protect the seas? Diba, why? Is it just because you're a diver and you want to see nice things? It's not just about that. It's more than our heritage and more than biodiversity. It's about people. And I love this ad because it shows a little boy peeking, and then the tagline is, just because you can't see it, it doesn't mean it isn't there. And it's completely right. You know, we're making decisions that young people, present and future generations, will never understand. And that's why we have to do things right. I mean, yesterday the speakers were saying about how, are we gonna let our previous generations, you know, pass on this country na hindi na baon na? Of course not. And we don't want to do the same thing, right? This is about, when you protect the sea, you give livelihood to so many people. And it's not just fishermen or fisher folk, but you're talking about tourism. I mean, how many of us here love going to the beach, diba? And we hire boat crew, we hire guides, we hire dive masters. I mean, there are hotels that are nearby. It produces so many jobs. And seafood, you know, if we just use environmentally sound methods to fish, we don't have to go hungry. We can produce enough seafood for the entire nation. We don't have to import. We're the richest country in the world when it comes to marine conservation. I mean, marine biodiversity. So it doesn't make sense to me that 4 out of 10 people in the coast live below poverty line. It doesn't make sense to me that we lose 8.4 billion every year because we don't protect our seas. And that money can send 2 million kids to school. And this was published in 2006, it's 2012. I don't know if we're any better now than then. I mean, also there's this misconception that environmentalists have to be a certain way. Sabi nila, oh, you're environmentalist, so you must be an angry tree hugger na nagwawelga outside ENR. I've never done that, and I've never hugged a tree either. Siguro you're vegetarian or you're vegan. Well, I come from Cebu, so I love Cebu lechon. I don't think I can ever give it up. Sabi nila, kailangan, siguro hindi ka naliligo kasi environmentalist ka. Uy, grabe naman. I take a bath every day, and I brush my hair. And I think that if you want people to respect you and your work, you have to look respectable as well. You have to be a scientist. Well, like I told you earlier, I graduated with a degree in English studies and I took theater for 10 years. So I can probably sing, Miss Saigon to you, but don't ask me about, benthic, ganito, ganyan. Oh my God, afraid. And then, you have to be experienced. Well, I've been in full-time marine conservation work for about 1.5 years. And I don't know much, and I think that's even better because that excites me. And I think that my willingness to learn makes up for my inexperience. And besides, who says you can't do environmental work in style, diba? So, in the next coastal cleanup, I'm gonna wear that. Ewan ko na lang. Sabi nila, my friend sent me this, keep calm and love sharks. And I was like, no way. I'm not gonna keep calm. Sabi ko, the only way to live is to live in a perpetual state of disturb. You have to let things bother you. You have to let things stir the emotions in you to be able to do something about it. Don't keep calm. Because Hope has 2 daughters, okay? Anger and courage. Anger that the way things are the way they are, but you also have to have courage to make things the way they ought to be. Now, yesterday, Sir Shah was talking about the different revolutions and the people who were involved in that revolution. I think now, when we begin revolutions or when we join revolutions that are of our own calling or our own cause, you have to put love in the middle of that. And sorry to Rizal, but I don't think the youth is for tomorrow. I think we're the leaders of today. And I hope all of you realize that. You do not have to wait to graduate to be able to do something. You don't have to get a PhD to be able to contribute to your country. At your age, at your position, at your experience, there's already so much that you can do. Okay? And this is my real advocacy. To stop global warming. It's not global warming, it's global warming. I think the earth, the world, and the World Wide Web are both so polluted with negativity and cynicism and just people bitching and trolling each other on Twitter. And I think I'm done with that. I don't reply to people who say things about me because I don't want to be part of global warming. I think what's more important is that you know something and you know the right thing to do, so do it. Enough talking. We don't have enough time. The world's gonna end on Friday. And I think that young people also have a lot of negativity and have a lot of angst. And why not promote what we love instead of bashing what we hate? It's more productive and it's not as tiring. Now, it also, I was talking about why I do what I do. And I know it sounds really cheesy, but I do what I do because I'm Filipino. And I've had the privilege to travel all over the world, and let me tell you, and all over the Philippines because of my work, and I have not seen a country as beautiful as this country. I tell you that, to the core of my bones, I mean it. And I think that if we all believe that, we would be in a better place. I think that as Filipinos who live in the most beautiful country in the world, we have a greater responsibility to do something. Diba? And I'm gonna end with this quote. Sabi ni Willie Monson, I am one. I'm one person. I do work, just a little bit of work. You all have your own interests and you all have your own pursuits. And I think that if you believe in a cause great enough and if you want to pursue it, then you can cause a lot of change. So I am one, but I am one. And thank you very much for having me.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm James Salomon. I'm your father, Peter. Anyway, I'm representing United Nations Youth Association of the Philippines. In my province, in Zamboanga del Sur, we have a certain island called the Panikian Island. It is a breeding ground of turtles. However, I've learned from the local residents there that poaching is being done there. And then they are afraid to do something about it because it is accordingly owned by a politician in our province. So, what could you advise for youths like us, especially that we're so concerned? Kasi the last time when I went there last March, I saw a turtle there. And then yung mga locals, sinabi nila na at night, doon daw sila pinupuntahan ng mga locals doon, tapos kinukuha nila yung ano. So, what could you give as an advice sa amin na we're concerned na baka maupos na or like na sila ng without na makakaaway or makakalaban yung politician na owner ng island?
Actually, that's a really important question because in a lot of places around the Philippines, when there are illegal things going on, it's not uncommon to find out that it's connected to the government. And that's heartbreaking, but it's just something that we have to deal with. What we're doing is we look for another champion in the government. So if you can't go local, then you get to the national government agency. So if it's turtles, then it's PAUB. And another problem pa in Zamboanga is it becomes the port of export because it's near Malaysia, right? So a lot of the shipments go to Zamboanga and then they get shipped out. And you're talking about container vans of turtles and corals and shells that are, endangered. And it's so hard because they earn so much from it. So further down the line, we have to look for alternative sources of livelihood. But right now, as a young person, that's my advice. You go national, or you give us, we want to work with you, give us the information that you have. And it can be part of the Bawikan Watchers program that we're launching next year. So just send us an email. And if you have pictures, it's even better because when we release things online, it adds public pressure to the local government to do something about it. So there. Thank you.
Thank you.
How do you finance your projects and where do you get your funds? Thank you, Ms. Mandy, please.
That's a really important question. There are different ways. If you want to go into environmental work, there are different ways. You can apply to an NGO, like let's say Conservation International, WWF, whatever, to be able to do it full time. But me kasi, I'm a little difficult because I don't like having a full-time job and I don't like having office work. So with that in mind, I had to create opportunities for myself. So masipag akong maghanap ng grants. Masipag akong, like the grant that I got in the Netherlands, the one that was part of my introduction, I received 50,000 euros, which is about 2.5 million pesos to be able to pursue the shark project that I'm doing in Cebu. So that's one thing. And then apply for sponsorships. So we're working with different companies who have been giving us support. And then, for example, I'm a consultant also for the Climate Change Commission. So I do part-time work for them, so that's another source of income. And then I also write a lot. So I write for, like Inquirer, Star, Rappler, and other publications. So that's another source of income. So it's really up to you how you want to go about it, what works best for you. Now the downside with having a full-time freelance life is that I can be working at 9 p.m. on a Saturday night, but I can sleep in the next day. So and then like me with the kind of work that I have also, I travel a lot. So just in January, I'll be in Naga, Cebu, Cambodia, and then back in Cebu. So parang that's also that. Well, I guess it's a perk and a downside because in one way, nakakapagod rin to travel and not have a permanent home and like live with your suitcase the whole time. But then you get to see more of the world and more of the country. So it's really up to you how you want to do it.